Hello, everyone. Welcome to another show of Citizens for Progress. We have a couple guests here today that we're going to be discussing prevailing wage in New Hampshire, and maybe a little bit more. So I'd like to introduce first Dave.
Yeah, my name's Dave Pelliter. I'm the business manager of Plumbers and Pipefitters Union and the president of New Hampshire Building Trades.
And Joe.
I'm a representative for the IBEW, former president of the Building Trades, and former business manager for the Electricians Union for the state of New Hampshire.
And these are both construction unions?
That's correct.
That's correct, yes, sir.
So would you like to tell us your experience? And you started off as an electrician and a plumber or pipe fitter, and what you've experienced from the time you started working till where you are today.
Well, maybe we want to, the topic of prevailing wage. Probably a lot of people don't understand what prevailing wage is. So should we give an explanation on?
Oh, certainly.
On what we're
I
talking
enjoyed
about?
your story so much of how both of you started off about the same time that I thought that, that puts a little
Right.
person on it.
And just to qualify for, to discuss construction in New Hampshire, and I've worked with David a long time, both in the construction industry and as union officials for our respective crafts. So I started in the 80s, 1983, worked in the field as an electrician for 18 years. In 2000 or 99, 2000-ish, I made the choice, I don't know if it was right or wrong, to go into becoming part of the union and work that avenue. We spent a lot of time, at the New Hampshire legislature lobbying for workers' rights and what have you. And we negotiate contracts. We handle all our benefits for our members. We're a private entity, so we're pretty involved with construction and have quite a bit of an experience from apprenticeship, day one, green kid coming out of high school, all the way up until today. Now I work for the International, and I'm a business development rep for the New England states.
Yeah. And it's similar. I started right around the same time, the end of 1982. Went through the apprenticeship, worked in the field until 2000. At that time, I ran for, local union office, became the business agent, and have been in the office ever since. So, as the agent, we're negotiating contracts, trustees on all our funds, involved in the training department. Like Joe said, apprenticeship, getting guys in, bring them all the way up through journeyman ranks and out in the field, and spent plenty of time up at the State House lobbying for, workers' rights.
So the issue of the day in construction is in New Hampshire, and it's no mystery. We've been trying to figure this out for a long time now. Is the lack of interest of young workers getting into the trades, whether it be skilled trades or non-skilled trades, which used to be a livelihood and a good livelihood here in the state of New Hampshire. And I've been listening to a lot of, I've seen a lot of things on local television where industry professionals come in, company owners or company representatives, and they make a plea to the kids to come into the trades. It's a good way to make a living, or a great way to make a living, and they're focusing on laying blame on the parents and the kids, sending their kids to four-year colleges, and forgetting about the trades. And how we can make a good living, and it always seems to come around to just a lack of education. But you know, there's a very important element to all of this and to why we're in the situation we're in. And you know, like New Hampshire, you know, we've always been free market, free enterprise state. Our market is dictating where we're headed today, and we've been trying to get that message out for a number of years now. And all the indicators, you know, of people not wanting to get in the industry, and you know where we're headed, why we can't find any qualified construction workers, our employers, is you know, is what we've been talking about for years, and it's the wages and benefits that are paid in construction here in New Hampshire, and there's no question about it. And I know, Dave, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you look at the wage and benefit package here in New Hampshire, you know, in our industry, a guy can drive a half hour, an hour down into Massachusetts and make almost twice as much money. You know, without any prevailing wage up here, and prevailing wage certainly wouldn't cure everything, but you know, the wages have been held down so low. When we go into negotiations, we have to compete against the non-union entity on the same projects, and in New Hampshire, it's been low bid. That's been the culture. It's low bid, and when you have a benefit package where you're paying health insurance, pensions, and annuity, you know, you're paying for your own apprenticeship training. That all drives up your rate, and when you go into negotiations, all that is taken into consideration in work in New Hampshire, and you know it just keeps the wages down.
Right, and so you know, you ask, you know, what does somebody look for when they're you know, making a choice of, you know, what they want to do for the rest of their lives, right? And I go back to when I graduated from high school, right? And certainly, you know, there were options. I grew up in Dover, and you know, there was manufacturing facilities, the Navy Yard, you know, the University of New Hampshire, and all the four-year colleges. I come from a long line of electricians, and I had an opportunity to become an electrician and get into an apprenticeship program. First order of business: how much money am I going to be making? What type of benefits am I going to get? And you know, what type of job is this, right? And so the answers were, you know, I was right off the bat, right out of high school, day one, I was going to make enough money so that I could move out of my parents' house at 18 years old. I was going to have a full health care benefit. Back then, there was no deductibles or co-pays and none of that. It was full health care benefit. And I was starting to put into a retirement benefit, which wasn't a big factor back then, right? You know, for me personally, and it isn't today for a lot of people, but it certainly should be. And now that I'm, you know, reaching that age, I'm thankful that I had those years early on. But these are the things that, you know, people look at, and you know, how much eventually will I be making if I put in the time and the effort to become an electrician or a plumber or a pipe fitter, which is a lot, and it's intense, and it's and then you look at the work, right? So here we are in New Hampshire.
Just to get a little basis on that, to be an electrician, right, you need 4 years of work experience, 4 years of schooling. Oh, is it up to 5 years with the local now?
So the state of New Hampshire, the requirements to become a licensed electrician in the state of New Hampshire, you have to have 8,000 hours on the job working under a master electrician, under the supervision of a master electrician. So you have to get those OJT hours, which is, you know, in a typical year you work about 2,000 hours. So that's 4 years. And then you need 500 and some odd, I can't remember the exact number, 500 some odd hours of classroom-related electrical work by an accredited, state-accredited educator, right? And the industry for us, the electrical industry has become so vast. The IBW on a national level actually went to a 5-year apprenticeship program. So we have a 5-year apprenticeship program where our kids actually have to go to school for five straight years and work 10,000 hours on the job before they're recognized as a journeyman electrician with us.
But they're not actually recognized till they take the test. That just makes them eligible to be able to qualify to take the test to become an electrician.
Right, and once you've accumulated, that amount of time in the industry and that time, chances are you got a pretty good chance you're going to pass that exam. With the state exam, which is difficult, and it should be, and it's obviously there are, other avenues to become an electrician in the state of New Hampshire. We have state programs that are very good.
The requirements are still the same, though.
There's a associate's degree through Laconia that's very good. And but you have to accumulate the on-the-job hours, which are very important. And coming from the trades, and Dave can attest, that on-the-job training is basically the majority of your apprenticeship program because you have to have that hands-on, and that's the way we learn. And there's a lot of code things that you're going to get in your curriculum and a lot of things that you just have to know, but that on-the-job training is absolutely key.
It seems the amount of education and work sometimes it makes me question why I was an electrician as opposed to something that might pay more. I mean, that's not included in the 4-year code updates. I mean, this education is continuous. It just does not end when you get your license. Is this the same in your trades, Dave?
Yeah, it's the same. Really, it is very much the same. So the state requirement is 4 years of school, which I believe is 133 or something hours a year, and then 8,000 hours in the field. Our requirement at our own local and internationally, it's the same as the electricians. We went to a 5-year program. In the 4th year, apprentices can typically apply for their license, for their plumbing license, and get it. But there's there's so many other aspects of the trade, whether it's med gas, whether it's rigging, foreman training, there's just welding, pipe fitting. There's just so many other things that we do that additional year to get a well-rounded journeyman. And even at that point, a guy gets out of his apprenticeship, becomes a journeyman after 5 years. It really takes a few years in the field before, that person is really out there and is able to run work and, be super productive. And
if you ask the guys in the field, they would all say it's about 10 years before you're really comfortable with yourself. And we're talking, all industries, right? So you're not, certainly if somebody is a residential, becomes a residential electrician, that's all they do is residential work. It is not as involved as, the industrial work and the commercial work that, with different systems that can be, really involved.
So I think I want to pull this back to, you're both expressing that there's a problem after we spend all this time training, that the wage difference between here and Massachusetts or other metropolitan areas is so vast that a lot of the membership lives here and actually does not work here. They work someplace else.
Well, it's all, they're all trying to provide for their families, and if they can make more money going south of the border, or even further. I mean, I have members who are working all over the country, to be honest with you, but the vast majority of guys want to be at home. They want to be home at night. They can drive right over the border and make an extra $20 an hour in their paycheck. you know, and still make the same benefit package. Pretty much everything's the same. Their health insurance is the same. The pension's very similar. The annuity is actually more money down there.
That's the same.
I mean, so certainly the economy is good here in New Hampshire, you know, and I love New Hampshire. I mean, and that's why I spend a lot of my time, trying to make life a little better for the construction worker in New Hampshire. And in 1985, I believe, we once had a prevailing wage law here in the state of New Hampshire. In 1985, it was repealed at the state legislature, and we became a non-prevailing wage state. And our procurement policy was also changed at the time to reflect that all construction in public works, municipalities and at the state level, would be lowest bid, right? And that's what we've been dealing with and trying to compete with for the last 34 years, 35 years. And since that time, so when Dave and I started, right, the decision was easy. This is a great industry. We were both lucky enough to get accepted into these apprenticeship programs. I didn't pay to go to school. I didn't pay for anything. The union paid for all of that through hours worked in the field. All part of our negotiated wage package with our members and our contractors at the time. At the time, we had about 70% of the electrical work in the state of New Hampshire. There were 3 different IBWs. There was one in Manchester, one in Concord, one in Dover. Everyone took care of their own little jurisdictions. And the non-union wages, they were comparable because they were competing against us, and people were getting into the trade. Once the repeal, came about, and I think we're the only New England state that doesn't have a prevailing wage.
We are.
With construction being, a mobile industry, anybody can, any contractor can come into the state at any given point and bring, his workforce with them, that doesn't demand the type of wages and benefits that area standards, demand here in the state. So we all know that New Hampshire is an expensive place to live. Cost of living is really, really high. Electrical costs are really, really high. We all, as residents, bear those same expenses. And when it comes to a point where you're spending a great deal of time and putting a lot of resources and trying to learn to become, a career, and you cannot even live off of that or provide for your family off of that, then you're going to go elsewhere. So the number of construction workers that are actually working in the state of New Hampshire is nowhere near New Hampshire's all-time high. Back in 2007, right before the recession, we had 40,000 people working construction in New Hampshire. I think we're at like 30,000 now, so there was 10,000 more. What that recession did, right, was it devastated the construction, as they always do, right? When any industries or there's any type of market problems, the first thing people do is they stop their infrastructure projects. They look at ways to cut cost in maintenance and upgrades, and that has a drastic effect on construction. Certainly, the home builders felt it with the mortgage crisis, and those guys are all electrical workers, plumbers, whatever. So they were looking for moving into the commercial industry, which trying to push those guys out with their low wages and low benefits, and it's just it can be traumatic. So we lost about 10,000 workers. We went from 30,000 to 22,000 literally overnight. Right? So these people, there was a lot of things that these people had never experienced. Right? Unemployment. Right? So they're all signing up for unemployment. And New Hampshire has a low unemployment rate. I mean, an unemployment benefit, which they certainly couldn't support their family off of.
We got about 10 minutes left, so
Right.
we want to really clearly define what prevailing wage is and how it affects in this case, the construction industry. It's also capable of covering more than just construction, but it's mostly construction, places that bid. And I'm going to try to very simplify this. We have what you just discussed as your wage package and your benefits. That gives an idea of what a prevailing wage could consist of. And then you have another contractor that doesn't provide those services. But if there's a prevailing wage, they have to make the income that they pay equivalent to the prevailing wage to bid on the work. Hopefully what's happening is they're bidding on their ability to perform the job in a timely and cost-effective manner, but yet paying their workers a wage that they can live on. Now, the construction company that doesn't include the benefits incurs a larger tax hit because they're making it up in wages, whereas the other contractor that we're using for an example of prevailing wages is actually making it up in benefits they provide their employees. So is that a pretty accurate description?
And here's another issue that's going on with construction in the state of New Hampshire, and it's a lot deeper, believe me, than kids not wanting to come into the business. All right. So I just did a run on the New Hampshire electrical contracts because that's my business. All right. So they were in Dodge Analytics, which is a company that are in the business to research construction projects and give them to contractors and organizations like mine. So we know the work's going to be and we're going to chase it. But we can also see where the work is being done and who's doing it. And I did a search on the electrical contractors for the state of New Hampshire, and the listed amount of contractors in the state of New Hampshire electrically on Dodge were 84 contractors. All right, so this is not just an employee deal. Of those 84 contractors, they shared 420 or so jobs. All right? These are New Hampshire employers, 84 New Hampshire employers, 400 and some odd jobs. More than 50% of those jobs were in Massachusetts, right? So more than 50% of the work that our employers are doing, not the workers, our employers, are in Massachusetts because they can go to Massachusetts with their workforce and pay them a heck of a lot more. They couldn't do that in New Hampshire because they cannot bid that those wages and benefits to pay their workforce, right? So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of contractors that take advantage of the prevailing wages down in Massachusetts to provide for their people, and they can be more competitive because there's a bottom line. And we're losing our own employers to the state of Massachusetts, along with our workforce.
Right.
So how do we address this? I mean, what effectively can we do to improve the situation?
Well, we have to take the blinders off and say, it's not the guidance counselors and the parents, all right? So there are a lot of parents that work construction and realized it was a dead-end street through the 90s and 2000s. There was a lot of construction employers, most of them, as a matter of fact, that didn't even provide a health care benefit or a retirement benefit and make all kinds of promises. And they realized, and you know, this is a physical, as you know, it's a physical job that once you're reaching 50, 55 years old, you can be outproduced by a 22-year-old, and you know, game over, right? So it's a tough industry, and it should be the people that put the time and the effort in should be compensated justly for it, and that's the problem here in New Hampshire, and we have to figure a way to make that work. And every time we testified in front of the legislature for the last 20 years, you know, with our cases, we were told by the legislature the free market will dictate wages and benefits in this state, right?
Yep.
So what the free market is dictating right now is we're going to lose an absolutely great industry for our children, and we're going to, you know, bricklayers, carpenters, I don't care what trade, labor. There was a time when you could raise a family off of all the trades. And, you know, now, you know, a lot of those trades are considered, you know, temp jobs for, you know, some help. And it's just not right. And it's an industry that, you know, we look at a lot of issues in this state, you know, drug problems and, now we have the grandparents taking care of all the kids, and you just wonder if these people could have had good jobs, right? At one point, a real smart guy told me one time, a good job solves a lot of problems, and I believe that wholeheartedly. And you know, we have to start looking at our construction industry as, are we going to lose it? Are we going to let, you know, out-of-state contractors and employees come in here and take over a great industry like that was once go into construction because it can't be outsourced? Well, it absolutely can.
Well, I think, you know, a prevailing wage is a perfect start. You know, we put in legislation this year. The governor vetoed it, like Joe had mentioned. You know, in his veto message, he said New Hampshire already makes, you know, New Hampshire workers already make some of the highest wages in the country. I mean, it's just not true. It's not true. I mean, you know, I don't know where the governor, what construction worker he's talking to, but I can tell you the ones I talk to that it's not the case. You know, you can go a lot of places in this country, in fact, an hour away and make a lot more money. But, you know, a prevailing wage at least would provide a floor where contractors would be able to bid and know that they're not going to be undercut by a contractor coming from Mississippi or anywhere, even Vermont or any other state, coming in underbidding, bringing in low-wage workers or going to a temp agency and getting workers to do the job. You know, and in the end, it costs the state more money because it's not a quality job. You know.
Yeah, I want to share. I mean, we were doing a lot of schools in the state with the contractor, and we were constantly losing them on low bid. But I ended up working with a union contractor going into those jobs to finish it because they never finished the job they started. And they'd still get the next one.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't finish the job before. I had to go in and work and clean that job out and finish it up. And they'd still get the next bid because they had the lowest bid. They didn't finish the last job or the job before that.
Right. So I mean, there's been a lot of work done on New Hampshire procurement, right? And certainly, across the aisle with both parties, over the years we've been able to bring a lot of those issues to light. You know, I mean, the state of New Hampshire passed best value contracting a few years back, and which was a step in the right direction, making sure that they're getting the best value. Right? It certainly was a benefit for the state, not the worker, but it was something, and it's, if we want to fix things here in the state of New Hampshire, even the good non-union contractors that want to pay their guys, a little bit more money or give them a decent benefit, are handcuffed because the competition will not do it, and we're in a situation where we can't even with this shortage of workers, wages and benefits, with any free market industry should be going up. And very, very slightly have they raised a bit since 2010.
Okay, we need to close it. We've run out of time. I thank you, Dave and Joe, for coming in and talking with us. I thank all of you for watching. Please join us next week with another show of Citizens for Progress.